Now, before we speak to Esther Krakue, let's have a listen to some of the closing speeches from the last day of campaigning. Of course, Donald Trump was going absolutely all over the country, covering thousands and thousands of miles, talking to thousands and thousands of people. His last rally was in Grand Rapids, Michigan.
If you want your children to be safe, if you want your values to be honored, if you want your life to be treated with dignity and respect, then I am asking you to go to the poll tomorrow and vote, vote, vote. Remember what I said 4 years ago. I am your voice, and we will make America great again, and that's what we're doing.
And that, of course, has been the Trump mission. That has been the Trump message that we will make America great again. He has been relentless in the last few days. I don't know whether he's not sleeping or whether he's got some kind of special energy that he seems to have found. Nigel Farage, who we spoke to yesterday, said he's never seen anything like it. Let's hear from Joe Biden. His last rally was in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Well, let me tell you something, folks. Tomorrow's the beginning of a new day. Tomorrow, we can put an end to a presidency that has left hard-working Americans out in the cold. Tomorrow, we can put an end to a presidency that has divided this nation and fanned the flames of hate. Tomorrow, we can put an end to a presidency that has failed to protect this nation.
Joe Biden there speaking at his last rally in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania, of course, will be a massive battleground because it's been said that if Joe Biden cannot win Pennsylvania, then he cannot win the White House. Esther Krakue is here with us. Esther, very good morning to you.
Hi, good morning.
So we've reached the day, finally, after all of the most bizarre kind of, corona-type campaigning that we've seen, where people are wearing masks all over the place.
Yeah,
they're standing on stages outside in the freezing cold. Unable to get very many people. I mean, Trump has managed to get thousands of people though around him, and he's been accused of being careless for doing that.
Did you see that picture of? I think it was like 70,000 people at this rally in Pennsylvania.
I know, and Pennsylvania is a big deal for him and for Biden. Because, of course, Biden came out at one of I think it was the second debate, and basically said, denied that he was going to do away with fracking and denied that he wanted to do away with fossil fuels. And then everybody dug up this interview that he'd done and loads of other interviews in which he said, I want to do away with fossil fuels and fracking, which is a big deal in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, I must admit, I'll be very shocked if Joe Biden wins Pennsylvania. I think.
Well, if he doesn't win it, then he ain't winning the White House, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be very shocked if he wins in general, but Pennsylvania would be a huge deal if he did win it. I'd be very, very shocked, just because, forget the fact that he says he doesn't want to ban fracking. It's the indecisiveness. Yeah. Obviously, these videos have cropped up, and then Kamala Harris, who's definitely, anti-fracking.
Yeah.
So it's not even a ticket that you could, I suppose, reasonably place a bet on if you're living in that state.
It was interesting, actually. I was listening to James Wells' show last night, and he had a call from a woman originally from Sevenoaks, but who is a dual citizen in the United States and has lived in San Francisco for the best part of the last 20 odd years, and she's a firefighter, right?
Yeah.
And she was saying how dreadful it is in some of these Democrat cities now, like San Francisco, which
like
are
LA.
so badly run, like LA. A friend of mine as well who lives in LA has moved to Arizona for the prevailing period because there's a lot of people who think that there might be a massive kind of violent upsurge from people who are not Trump supporters if he wins.
Yeah. I was saying to a friend, it would be really funny if Trump won California.
Yeah, I mean, that's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen, but there's a psyche that I don't understand in those areas. A lot of people are fleeing California, and yet they end up voting for the same horrible politicians that made their states unlivable in the first place. I don't understand that.
I know, it's strange, isn't it? But I think the trouble as well is that it's an interesting race for the first time for me as well, because an awful lot of Democrats are not comfortable with what the Democrat Party has become.
Yeah.
Some Republicans are not happy with Donald Trump as the leader of the Republican Party either. So there's a kind of a mismatch going on. And yet we're told there's going to be a bigger voter turnout for this election than the last one. And
I think that means that this vote is more symbolic than, other votes in the past. I think for me, what I've noticed with the Democrat Party is the moderates in the Democrat Party have just fallen through the floor.
Yeah.
That moderate section of the Democrat Party, which is really their bread and butter. I mean, that's how Obama won in 2008 and 2012.
Yeah.
They have literally just fallen through the floor. And, I think it's been such a mistake for Biden, but Kamala as well, to embrace the very far left part of the party in the way that they've done and made it very vocal. Look at the squad. Look at people like Bernie Sanders. Look at how far Bernie Sanders came.
Right.
They have literally effectively rejected their main base and have shifted so far left that the reason why I think there's such a huge voter turnout is because there's something fundamentally wrong with one of the big main parties in the US.
Do you think there's some
crazy.
similarities you could draw between what's happened to them and what's happened to the Labour Party as well?
Yeah, with the Momentum Group.
Yeah, because Labour are now trying to kind of pull back from that,
Yeah.
having suspended Jeremy Corbyn. I mean, I have to say, I was very slightly irritated to find myself on holiday on the week that Jeremy Corbyn got suspended from the Labour Party and the same week that Keir Starmer ran over a cyclist.
Yeah.
But, you know, the thing is that they have both similarly moved to this kind of
Very
intellectual
far left,
position without taking any of their traditional working class voters with them.
Yeah, and it's very weird. I don't know where that strategy came from. And you notice a lot of people that tend to, I suppose, have shifted the parties as far left as they have. They tend to be sort of middle class, you know, elite educated, university educated, you know, individuals who, you know, sometimes question the agenda. Right. And for me, that's just a result of the university system, because there's no other reason behind it. These are people that clearly have very little life experience, or, you know, have lived in a bubble of sort of academia their entire lives. And they're the people that have managed to shift these parties left. And I think, you know, we're going to see the same thing that happened, you know, last year at the general election. We're going to see the same thing in the US.
And what they're trying to do, the Democrats, of course, and this is why we're told that there's a massive kind of postal vote and the early voting has been going on in many of the states in the South, is they're trying to galvanise the black vote, they're trying to galvanise the ethnic vote and the young vote. But that may not matter if, in fact, Donald Trump wins New York back, if he wins Florida, if he wins Pennsylvania, if he wins Ohio. You know, none of that will make any difference. I doubt he'll win New York.
But I think one thing the Democrats, unfortunately for them, I think all of it's come in this particular general election, in the sense that there's also a huge anti-Democrat movement in the US now. You know, minorities are saying, actually, you need a little bit more. It's not enough to just rely on the black and Latino voters saying, oh, you know, the other guys are really racist, because it's like, well, you haven't done much either. Right. So are you the real racist? Yeah. And I think they're really underestimating that.
Yes, I think so. So, I mean, as far as the sort of the way that things are going to pan out later on, obviously we're going to be on the air throughout the night. We're expecting there to be some early indications by maybe 2-3 o'clock in the morning, with a bit of luck, if we can do that. But there's also an awful large portion of the sort of commentariat who think this is going to turn into a very long and very drawn out legal battle, because Trump is going to declare victory because he's voted, you know, because all the postal votes may not have been counted, and then the postal votes may sway it a different way.
I'm very skeptical of that. I'm going to turn off my social media by like 10 p.m. this evening. I don't want to know anything.
Well, don't forget to watch the show.
I mean, no, Mike, I will not. I will literally be in a hole on the ground. Yeah. No, I don't really want to be in the thick of it. I'm not very good with suspense and drama in that way. Okay. I think because there's going to be such a historic turnout, I don't think, you know, the waiting for the mail-in ballots would have that much of an influence. I'm very, very skeptical of that, but
it's going to be interesting. Yeah, I mean, well, may well be that, you know, you'll wake up in the morning and they'll still be counting, and nothing will have happened. I mean, it's a bit like those interminable council elections that we have in this country, where you go, so who won that council? Oh, we'll find out a week on Friday. And you're kind of going, well, why does it take so long? And it is. I mean, it's very interesting in America, where they've got this kind of bizarre system, which is actually, you know, quite antiquated compared to what everybody else in the rest of the world does. They had, remember the hanging chads debate when back in Florida, this was probably, I think it was Bush and Gore, when Florida was going both ways. It was declared by Dan Rather, CBS anchor, that Gore had won, and he declared it so early that he had to then cancel that, reverse it, then declared about 2 other different results. But the phrase that everybody's mind was turned to was this hanging chad, because you go in, you don't actually mark an X in a box, you go in and you pull a lever which kind of punches a hole where you want it to be punched, which can result in all sorts of, you know, problems, because it's a very antiquated way of doing things. And so a lot of people have said, you know, isn't it time that they modernised a little bit more? System. But the other thing, I suppose, philosophically, that I would ask you about is the dearth of opportunities for younger politicians. You know, there were younger politicians that stood in at the beginning when Trump and Biden were being nominated during the whole process. But you know, they've ended up with these 2 guys who, in the end, don't really represent America, but they do represent a particular generation, don't they?
And it's really weird. I always say, you know, and I think this is the fault. I mean, you know, Trump is still pretty energetic, but, you know, shifting the focus onto the Democrat Party in the selection of a candidate, I feel like if they'd chosen someone like Tulsi Gabbard, or anyone who's kind of a respectable politician in the cleaner phrase of the term, would have beaten Trump, like, hands down. But I don't know how, of 330 million people, of a party as powerful and as large as the Democrat Party, you chose someone who can't even get his words out. Like,
well,
his mental faculties are in question.
That little speech we had him make there in Pittsburgh,
Yeah.
he's already sort of, mumbling his words and kind of, slightly slurring them. He came out with something the other day, which Nigel Farage retweeted, which was basically
gibberish.
Just gibberish, and nobody could tell what he was saying. I mean, I don't think there's many people who believe that if he does win, that he will take his presidency to the full term.
No, if he does win, it's Kamala Harris who's going to be the next president.
Right.
And that's something that nobody else voted for. And a funny thing about Kamala is, again, she is like I don't understand why the Democratic Party did this. I mean, I know they were trying to curry the favor of the black vote with Kamala as, being on the ticket. But it's like, this is a woman that's made a career of imprisoning young black men for minor offenses. Yeah. And she's Indian. She's not even I don't even understand the cognitive dissonance of the Democratic Party with regard to this woman. Right. This woman, is racially ambiguous. We can put it that way. She's not black. And she's made a career out of, jailing young black men in the US. How exactly are you supposed to curry favor with anyone with a candidate like that?
But then that's the whole problem, is it not, with the Black Lives Matter movement? That it's not clear who they represent exactly, because there's an awful lot of people who have been involved in some of the rioting in America who are white and middle-class kids who have decided to join in the sort of burning and looting of shops.
Which they say is justified.
To make a political point about a group of people that they are not part of, which seems very odd to me in the beginning. I mean, we saw, I think last week, that Black Lives Matter has now officially applied to become a political party, which I think is an interesting move, because it will make them far less able to demonstrate. It will make them far less able to be representative on even the media, because they now will be treated as a political organisation, which up until now that hasn't been the case.
And that's what everyone was saying. We were all saying this is not a wholesome anti-racist movement. This movement is political. Right. And, even in schools, teachers and faculty members were very anxious about talking about it, because on the one hand, especially because the teachers' unions in this country are very left-wing, they're like, this is anti-racism. But on the other hand, they couldn't deny the clear political nature of this organisation. Right. And now they've obviously registered as a political party.
And it will also prohibit them from accessing various things. They won't be able to be represented, perhaps, by sports organisations, because they're a political party. They can't get involved in any kind of sporting activity. They can't be sort of endorsed by companies, because companies now would then be in the business of endorsing political parties. So they've almost shot themselves in the foot, I think. Yeah,
and this is kind of egg on the face at the Premier League, for the Premier League, because it's just like, gosh, go woke, go broke is a thing, right? Yeah. But they jumped on the bandwagon. I'm not even sure if players didn't want to wear the jerseys with Black Lives Matter, and they were allowed not to. Yes. And they've made this huge stance supporting this organisation, and now look what's happened.
And what do you think will happen in the US if Trump does win another 4 years, in terms of those types of movements and that type of kind of demonstration culture that's been growing there? Because I mean, a lot of people have said that there are many it's very tense in a lot of American cities, that there is a sense that there might be trouble if he does win, and the police are gearing up for that, and it doesn't sound good. But they can't do that for 4 years, surely, can they?
Well, I mean, the media and celebrities have definitely tried their best to keep up the tantrum. I haven't actually seen a lot of celebrities saying they'll leave the country this time, so I'm guessing they
didn't do it last time, did they?
Like
they don't do what they say.
Yeah, shocking.
And we're still waiting for Yasmin Alibi Brown to leave the country when she.
We're waiting for a lot of them. We're waiting for about half of Silicon Valley. Anyway, but
exactly right.
I think there are shops that are boarding up. The companies that are boarding up their shops because they're anticipating. The reality is, a lot of the violence that we do see, whoever wins will not be from mainly Trump supporters. That's just a fact. It will definitely come from the militant left that we've seen, taking a foothold in the country.
But I guess my question has it been a fad, or will it become part of kind of what you would call mainstream America? Because America is a country that I know pretty well. My sister still lives there, my mother lives there, my son lives there. But it's not really a country that I recognise anymore in terms of the way that it's performing and behaving.
I don't think it's a fad. I think these people are, when you're ideologically possessed, you do everything that's outside of reason, right? And these people are here to stay. Obviously, the left have a very strong foothold in the culture in the US. I think, we'll start seeing the influence of these movements dissipate when, I suppose, more centre-right or more centre organisations and groups and thinkers start to take a bit more control of the media, of culture and stuff like that. And there's just actually a true diversity of opinion. I don't think it's a fad. I think that, either way, whatever happens, there will be some sort of violence, which is very unfortunate. But I do think eventually America will come out stronger.